Okay. And I don't think Supervisor Provenza is with us today, but I think Richard is here.
That's correct. Richard Reed, Deputy to Supervisor Provenza.
Excellent. Thank you. And is Lucas here?
Good afternoon, Lucas Ferrix, Vice Mayor of City of Davis.
Hey, Lucas. And is Brett with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Brett Lee, City Council Member, City of Davis.
Perfect. Thanks, Brett. And Wade?
Yes, Wade Cowan, Mayor for City of Winters.
Great. I think Enrique said he would be a few minutes late, so we'll say hi to him in a little bit. And with that, we'll just go through the list. I'll go to Phil.
Yeah, Phil Pogledich, County Counsel. My office will be serving as counsel to this Joint Powers Agency. And also with me is Megan Calloway. Megan can introduce herself separately, but we'll both be assisting. Sometimes you'll see one of us, sometimes you'll see the other. Sometimes we'll both be here. We'll be getting it organized as we go along.
And we'll kick it over to Megan.
Hi, Megan Calloway, Deputy County Counsel.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Lisa Gaines.
I'm Lisa Gaines. I'm with Unleashing the Possibilities. I guess I'm the president now of Unleashing. That's what happens when you don't go to meetings.
Congratulations. And Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Amato. I am the Supervising Animal Service Officer, currently assigned to the shelter.
Fantastic. And Dale?
Dale Johnson, Undersheriff Coroner at the Yolo County Sheriff's Office.
Fantastic. We'll go over to Matt Dulcich.
Yes, hello everyone. This is Matt Dulcich with UC Davis Government and Community Relations.
Fantastic. Mike Webb.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Mike Webb, City Manager for Davis.
Fantastic. And Ken?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Ken Hyatt, City of Woodland, City Manager.
Awesome. Aaron?
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Laurel, the City Manager for the City of West Sacramento. And I don't think she's on here yet, but Megan Stiles from our office will also be joining us in these meetings going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Aaron. John Miller?
Good afternoon, John Miller, Chief of Police, Winters Police Department, and kind of filling in for John Donlevy, hoping to get the new city manager back involved in this as soon as one's appointed.
Fantastic. And did I miss anyone from that initial roll call or introduction? I believe there's a phone number.
Bob Shavert, Unleashing the Possibilities.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Bob. Okay, I think we've got everyone.
So I think our first item then is to actually consider approval of the agenda. And just for notation, I think we have 3 voting members here today, which would be Councilmember Ferrix, Chair Sandy, Councilmember Cohen, if I have this correct. Is that right, Eric?
Pat, it's Phil. I was keeping track, and that is correct.
Okay. So if someone wants to approve the agenda amongst those
we'll
3.
Move. Chair Sandy will move the item.
Seconded by Ferrix.
And then if we could, we'll need to do a roll call vote. Eric, if you could call them off.
Fantastic. Okay. We'll this is new for me. So
okay.
In my office of clerking. So we'll start with Chair Sandy.
Aye.
Okay. Lucas Ferrix.
Aye.
Wade Cohen. How do you vote, Wade? Did we lose him?
Aye. There he is.
Thank
you.
you.
Mute on. Sorry about that.
Oh. Thank you. And I don't believe Enrique is with us at this time.
Thank you, Eric, for doing that. And Chair Sandy, I wouldn't have gone through that formal step, but county council's here, and I'm scared that they're watching closely. So we needed to do that.
Like a hawk that man is.
Taking notes, Pat.
Item 3 is an opportunity for public comment. If anybody I don't know that we have anybody that's truly public here, but if anybody wants to raise their hand for a comment on an item not on agenda, this would be the opportunity. Not seeing any, we can move directly to item 4, which is election of chair and vice chair. This is the moment I've been waiting for. So amongst the
Pat
voting.
Blacklock is chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a governing board member, but thank you.
I think that chair title sounds pretty good in front of Gary Sandy. I'll nominate Gary Sandy.
Happy to second that.
It's the bad thing about starting and ending the day with Mayor Cowan. I tell you, he takes his
Sounds like there
revenge
was
out
a
on you.
motion and second to that. Now, I guess, Eric, we would need to do another roll call unless there's any discussion.
Absolutely. I would be happy to, unless there's any. Nope, seeing no discussion. Okay, moving forward, how do you vote, Member Frericks?
Aye.
And how do you vote, Member Cohen?
Aye.
And how do you vote, Member Sandy?
The embarrassed and chagrined aye.
Fantastic. Okay.
Chair Sandy, the agenda is yours.
Thank you. I'm a humble man, and as often noted, I have much to be humble about. So here we go. That takes us to item 5, which is to receive a presentation on the Animal Services Workgroup efforts and provide
Actually,
feedback.
Chair Sandy,
Yeah.
this is Phil Pogledich.
Oh, we have vice chair.
Vice chair, yes.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Get to inflict it on somebody else now.
I know. I keep promoting efficiency in government, and no one wants it. So I appreciate that. Who would like to serve as vice chair?
All right, I'll do it.
All right. Was that a volunteer?
Yeah,
All
Cowan.
right. You're a good man, Mayor Cowan. Thank you. It's been moved that Mayor Cowan serve as vice chair. Is there a second to that motion?
Second by Frericks.
All right. Further discussion or nominations? Our hearing none, it's closed. The nominations are closed. Please take a roll call, Eric. Vote.
Absolutely. So, Member Frericks, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Member Cohen?
Aye.
And Chair Sandy?
Aye, enthusiastically.
Fantastic.
All right.
Okay. I believe we
So-
can proceed now.
Thank you so much, Eric. So that leads us to a presentation on the Animal Services Work Group. Are you going to take care of that, Eric?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Eric will bring a presentation up. I'm going to start off and then I'm going to hand it off to Eric.
Okay.
Lead
Thank
us
you.
through the majority of the discussion. And I would encourage the members to ask questions anywhere along the way. This should be an interactive conversation to some degree. But I want to start by thanking again everyone for being here today. This feels to many, myself included probably, that it has been a long time coming. Yet I'm really heartened to have what is really our first shared governance meeting and discussion, or official shared governance meeting and discussion on the topic of animal services. I would say that animal services in Yolo County, I would argue, is suffering to some degree from benign neglect. And let me explain a little bit more what I mean by that term. But nowhere is that more visible than to take a walk through the dog kennels, in my mind, and see the method of sheltering that we are using that is outdated, inefficient, and I would argue costly based on the structure where that is happening. And so that's a visible sense of where that benign neglect is happening. But it's not just it's also a visible reminder that the rest of the system is also in need of modernization. And because when we haven't had a venue to have those conversations through shared governance, I can safely say that I think a lot of interests have not been addressed, hence the benign neglect. And for some, those interests might be cost and finding ways to reduce costs. And in fact, the previous studies have identified a pathway to do just that. For some, it is about providing services that reduce overpopulation. And again, a pet overpopulation, animal overpopulation. And again, those aforementioned studies have identified a pathway to do that. And for our staff that are just doing incredible work, working in a very outdated facility, the interest might be providing them the tools that allow them to implement the best practices in not only animal services, but also modern animal sheltering and medicine associated with animal sheltering. And again, those previous studies identified a pathway to do it, but we've never had a shared services venue to capture all those interests and to take those pathways that are in those previous report that really can meet all those interests at once and advance them. And so that's what's so unique about what's happening here today, is that now we have a shared governance venue to really dive more deeply and to chart out a course forward. And in fact, that's what Eric's going to talk about is how do we take all this good work that's been done to identify potential pathways to meet the different interests amongst our partners and translate that into an actionable strategic plan and operational model that then the member agencies can review and hopefully give the green light to proceed with. The scope of this JPA stops at the completion of that strategic plan and operational model. And that's the way it was set up, was that this JPA is going to craft what a future vision looks like. And then we stop and we go back to the city councils and the board to say, do you want to do this? If the city councils and board of supervisors say yes, then we'll need to update the JPA to become an operational JPA. But that's the structure that we have before us. So I just wanted to provide that preface as we get started to explain why I am excited that we're all here today, and I think there is some much promise on the horizon. And with that, I'll hand it off to Eric to lead us through the slides.
Fantastic. I think that about covers it. I think we can call it a day. So thank you, Pat. And can everyone see the presentation currently? Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So today before us, we have, if this will advance, perfect. Once again, hi everyone, Eric Will with the County Administrator's Office. Today, I think should be a fairly straightforward discussion. I would anticipate that we've already done introductions, so we're well on our way in this agenda. Today, I will provide a bit of a recap presentation just on the efforts that Pat had alluded to, as well as the efforts over the last several or many years for some of you. And then looking into the future at a proposed JPA timeline, noting that this is draft, that staff has just put this together to get a sense of timing as we move forward with this group, and then open it up to any group discussion or updates from the group that would be helpful as we move forward. Finally, at the end of the agenda, we're looking at the potential for a next meeting as well as some next steps that this group may look forward to. And so at any time, feel free to stop me if you have any questions. I'm here to answer whatever I can and to open it up to this discussion. So first, we'll start off with a quick recap of this work group's timeline and now JPA. So over the years, we've had several studies that have focused on the governance of the animal services within Yolo County, as well as the actual facilities that we have existing. And so as we move forward in this process, it's important to note that we've done a lot of groundwork already. As Pat has mentioned, we have a lot of information that we can build upon, both from the governance and the facility side of things. And this group has been meeting over the years to have these discussions. So I think there's a lot of familiarity with what we have discussed previously, but it's just good to remember that we actually have some recommendations and findings moving forward that can help guide us. I will say that it's exciting that we've got this initial momentum with the initial JPA that's been signed. And I will note that just having this meeting is exciting just to me as a member of Yolo County moving forward with animal services. As for our next slide, I think just as a reminder for everyone is that the JPA really has these four major components. So we've already checked off this initial agreement as well as initial governance. Note that this could be subject to change, as Pat mentioned, if we were to move forward with this process, that we could look to amend the existing JPA depending on what the wishes are of this group, as well as what the city councils and the board of supervisors ultimately determine is the best path forward. Next, we have the exploration of operational models, staffing and program options. And I'll include in here as well the idea of a strategic plan with vision and values and a mission statement for this group to really be guided as we move forward in this process so that we can tackle this together through these strategic planning efforts. Looking also at public outreach efforts, making sure that this is not just contained within this group, but also making sure that the public is engaged in this process and that we can really benefit from them as stakeholders. And then finally, just the consideration of the subsequent JPA or an amendment to the JPA to institute the operational model. So once the model has been built, looking at how we might actually implement this. And so I'll note just a couple of recommendations and findings that came up in the studies over the years. So specifically these three coming from studies done in 2012 and 2013. we really see a focus on the actual existing facility as well as the potential for the construction of a new facility that would really help us with efficiencies within our existing governance and facilities. We look at a greater cost that's incurred earlier on, but with the increased ability to support the services as well as to fund additional services that would allow us to generate significant revenue. And I won't go into these into great detail. I think everyone here is fairly familiar with these, but just to note that we did have these studies completed and that we have these recommendations to build upon as we move forward. So with that, now we can look ahead. I think it's exciting to note that we already have the governance model created. And so it's nice that we can check a box at our first meeting, and that's exciting to see the progress there. But I think we have ahead of us this draft timeline that really just starts to get at how we might build this strategic plan, as I mentioned previously, through the development of a vision, mission, goals, and objectives, do a check-in with the City Council and Board of Supervisors, then move into the creation of an operational model, including staffing, program options, and financial projections. Once again, with another check-in with City Council and the Board of Supervisors to really make sure that we're measuring our progress appropriately and looking forward to this process appropriately with the different stakeholders who are involved in this JPA. I will note that we have several items at the end of this list that have TBD on them. That would be dependent on what the wishes of this group, as well as the City Councils and Board, were to be once we are appropriately within this process. And so those have been left blank for now, just because even the work ahead of us right now takes us out several years as we look forward to building this process together. And so finally, for this presentation, we are looking for feedback at this time for thoughts on what was presented within the timeline, any questions about the previous work that's been completed for this group, and then looking ahead at any feedback or suggestions for how we might determine the next steps as they relate to building this strategic plan. So drafting a vision, mission, goals, objectives, and then also discussing how we might move forward with a meeting structure, which is actually the next item on the agenda. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions and any feedback that this board may have.
Gary, you're muted.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. I really appreciate that. I need those sort of reminders frequently. Are there any comments anyone would like to make at this point? Particularly members of the public who may be with us?
You guys know that I have probably the biggest mouth and one of the most engaged. So I would like to start. Thank you, everybody, for staying engaged. This is so important, I think, to us as a community and a county. One of the things that I think is important is the idea that all of these studies were done almost 10 years ago. And I think that it's really important that we look at some of the data and some of the things that have changed and processes that have changed, because a lot of work has been done. And I think that we can learn from things that have been updated. So I'm not sure who would take that on. But I think it's important because right now we're looking at numbers from 2012. So just something to think about. And then perhaps also coming to the table from each of our respective cities with their main objectives. I think we have collective objectives and goals, but they're not all the same. And I think it's really important that we have a discussion of what our priorities are, because I don't know that they're the same for each city. So I think that's something we're going to need to discuss.
Good point. Thank you. Other comments? I know there's another member. I neglected to write down his name. I apologize, from the Unleashed group here with us today. Did you have a comment you'd like to make?
It's Bob Shabert.
No, that's right. Thank you, Bob.
I concur with 100% with Lisa.
All right. Good to know.
Gary, I'm curious, I realize that there have probably been many other more important issues on people's minds because of COVID and everything else that's gone on since the last time we met. But I'm curious if there's been any discussion with the cities and kind of where people's heads are right now. Wade, has Winters had any more conversation or thought about this?
I don't think we've discussed this since we approved the JPA.
Our last meeting was in Woodland. When was that, Eric?
I believe that was in October of 2019 or late September, maybe late September.
October.
Okay.
It was October with? Or
I
Dale?
think so.
That's the last time I remember discussing this issue. Any of the city managers want to weigh in on that particular question?
Well, Chair Sandy, I'm happy to provide a little input from Davis' perspective. You know, we've been very engaged in the discussions the last couple of years in particular, I'd say. And as is evidenced here by our two council members that are form our subcommittee and our membership to this JPA, we've really sort of been holding off on recent discussions until this JPA effort got underway. So I would say the last 6 months or so, we probably haven't had much in the way of direct discussions, conversations, because we wanted to benefit from the group effort of the JPA here, but very interested in progressing forward. Animal services are crucial, I think, for our community, and our community in Davis is a big consumer, if you will, of those services. So we're very much looking forward to developing plans and all the things that were laid out here very nicely by Eric. And I'll turn to, of course, our Lucas Ferrix and Brett Lee. They may have anything they wish to add to that.
Gentlemen?
I personally think that sums it up quite well. So.
Yeah, this is Brett. I don't have anything really to add. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
So Gary, if I may offer the City of Woodland
Thanks, Ken.
document update. So to my knowledge, the council has not had this as a topic on their agenda. It's been at least about a year since we last really engaged on this, but certainly anxious, as is the other jurisdictions, to engage and develop a longer term strategy to provide better service more sustainably. So very much looking forward to it.
Appreciate that. West Sacramento?
Yeah, similarly. So I think I should probably start by clarifying for anyone who is new to this process. We're an obvious omission from the board, and that's not because we don't want to be engaged in the process. We do, and we have been. I think with West Sacramento, we've been upfront from the start that we have some unique challenges, and just with our geography being so close to Sacramento, I'd just describe it as options potentially. And as we're going into this, cost has always been at top of mind for our city in the overall animal services and control. Of course, the quality of the services are up there as well, but it's a, as you all know, a cost that has continued to increase over time. And I think I'm safe to say that our council has been concerned about committing to something that could end up, perpetuating that issue. And so that's really the number one thing for West Sacramento. A year ago was probably about the last time we talked to our council about it, and the direction we were headed at that time was to explore options with the city of Sacramento, with other options across the river, while we participate with this group on building the model and what that'll look like for Yolo County. So then, like everyone, we've been a little distracted for the last year now. So we haven't revisited with our council since then, but it's something that we'll definitely need to do once we have more information on this process. So I'll be here representing us in the meantime. and we definitely want to stay engaged.
Appreciate that, Aaron. Thank you.
Aaron, can I ask you a question relative
Sure.
to West Sacramento? I know that because you've told us before that dollars and cents are kind of at the top of your list in terms of issues to address. But I'm wondering if you could put that aside and perhaps go back to your group, and I think as we all should, and perhaps come together with, if dollars and cents weren't an issue, what are their priorities when it comes to animal control? Where do they see the largest need? And where do they feel that this kind of an organization could meet that need? And how would they measure success? What would they look at to say this was an successful endeavor because we did X, Y, and Z? Does that make sense? And perhaps that's the same question that I would ask of all of the cities.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does, but I think with anything, it's hard to separate the two because there are just realities of level of service and the mission that equate to the way we have this structure where we're all paying our proportionate share. So, I mean, I definitely hear you, and that's something we can do on a more qualitative approach.
I think you can separate your need from the cost. I mean, they're not, one has really nothing to do with another. You may not be able to afford to meet your need based on the cost, but they're really separate issues. These are the problems we're having. These are the issues we need to address. Because once we have those things, then we can talk about cost. Otherwise, I feel like we're going around in a circle. Maybe that's just me. I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
Yeah, I think
Guys are
for us,
so
it's not just the cost issue. When I said we have other unique qualities about our city, so geography is another consideration when we're talking about the animal services issue. You really have two aspects of it. One is animal control, the other is animal services, and we're actually looking at both of those issues sort of separately. Right now, you know, we're 20 miles away from Woodland, and we have the sheriff providing the service on animal control. And we need to be looking at, from the West Sacramento perspective, what is the best way to provide that service. Maybe it is locally, maybe it is partnering with Sac County, Sac City, for example. But yeah, I mean, I hear you though. The more qualitative aspects of it. What do we want from our animal services center, for example? Those are definitely things we can get more feedback on. But it is both sides of the equation, services and control.
Matt Dulcich, do you have any observations from the university side?
I do, Gary. Thank you. I think I would want to just offer for the group the idea of charting some flexibility for partnerships and collaboration, and wanting there to be the ability for, if it's appropriate, a year or two in to add more partners. And then directly for UC Davis, thinking that some of the models that were illustrated leading up to this process from other entities, other regions, had sort of a fee for service or a la carte kind of opt-in option. And I think UC Davis would want that kind of flexibility in both the planning effort and as a way to set the stage for UC Davis participation. So that would be my first point.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I saw the dean is retiring, right, Matt, of the vet school?
Thank you, Gary. Perfect. That was my second point was obviously there will need to be a conversation about vet school participation and the collaboration that seems like a natural fit. And we'd want to start that conversation when it's appropriate, or restart that conversation. So I think that's a function of obviously this effort, and then my role would be to help get that started for us.
That recruitment will probably take about 6 months, you think?
I think at least 6 months.
Okay, at least.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Richard Reed, do you have any comments?
No, we're good right now.
Okay.
Hey, Gary, this is Brett Lee. Could I make a comment?
I would hope so. I'd welcome your comments, Brett.
So, you know, as far as West Sac, I mean, geographically, there's clearly some special circumstances there. I think what Matt was talking about has shown to be effective in some other ventures that we've made. So the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency, for instance, had anticipated UC Davis joining at some point, and there was sort of built into the early documentation was sort of a pathway for that. Lucas is very familiar, and many of the other folks are familiar with Valley Clean Energy, this anticipation of as other entities feel comfortable joining and when it makes sense for their community, that it's pre-anticipated so we don't have to go and rework everything. So I don't think it's really going to be problematic if everyone on day 27 raises their hand and says absolutely sign us up. I think out of the gate, I think there'll be some entities that are going to be really strong supporters and really want to move forward at full speed, and others, the fact that they might want to wait and see a little bit and see what other possibilities exist for them. I don't think that's a problem. I think as has been described, this offers a lot of potential benefits for the communities that do ultimately sign on. And so I think, making sure that from the beginning we have an open door so that other entities could join us, I think makes sense.
Appreciate that, Brett. Thank you. Stephanie, is there anything you'd like to add? I apologize for picking on you, but you have a unique perspective.
No, I appreciate that. Actually, and I appreciate Lisa suggesting that we provide some updated information as far as the advances that we have done. I've been with Animal Services for over 7 years, and that was at the beginning and end of one of the studies. And so I would love the opportunity to be able to provide that to the committee. What we have been doing, as it was mentioned, with the limited resources we do have and the different perspectives. I mean, I'm also, have been a field officer and now assigned to supervising the shelter and in the position of acting director until that position is filled. So I would absolutely like to share what we've done. And the pandemic has created challenges, but we've actually implemented quite a few things that we are going to hold on to, which has helped with live release and adoption and rescue. So I do appreciate the time to be able to speak, but we have quite a bit of things that we have been moving forward, and I would be happy to share that information.
Good, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Hey, Gary.
Uh-huh.
The one thing that it seems to be missing from this committee, we have lots of enthusiasm and lots of great participation, but we don't have a veterinary consultant. And we don't have anybody that's actually from the animal welfare community, in the sense of not at Stephanie's level, boots on the ground, but somebody who's been involved with the and has either a degree or familiarity with what's being done. And I'm wondering if we might invite somebody to be on our committee that could listen as a consultant from that perspective and hear all of us.
It seems well advised and eminently doable, Lisa. I think it's a good idea. Do you have anyone in mind?
Oh, I have a couple people in mind. I just have no idea what their availability is.
Good. That's all the more helpful.
I think that right now we're in a rather a unique position because of the fires. All of our organizations are incredibly overburdened. Whether it's the university or Stephanie's group or CART, with the organization in Napa. So it's a good opportunity, unfortunately, to see where we're lacking in resources. Despite the fact that this is an unusual situation, unfortunately, it's becoming more usual. And I think it's really important that we look at this in the context of how our environment is changing. In addition to that, I think that a lot of the rescue organizations that have always supported us were losing because of economic resources being stretched. So there are some other things that have been added to the mix in the last 12 months that I think we need to think about. And Matt, I would probably call on you to maybe help us from the university side to grab some more of that information.
Absolutely, Lisa. Yep. And it's great to see you. I hope you've been doing okay. And thanks for all your emails. Yeah.
Good. Well, Eric, if we could look at some updated studies and perhaps a list of priorities, as Lisa suggested here in the near term for our next meeting, that would be helpful. Is that something you could assist with?
Absolutely. I would be happy to do that.
Okay. As well as the recruitment of a potential veterinary consultant. I also think
Absolutely.
it's a good idea.
Absolutely. And I would be happy to, if the group is willing to work with the partners of the JPA to solicit feedback on an individual basis to gather the different feedback for each of the cities, and then we could compile that and bring back to the group if appropriate. So be happy to do whatever this group thinks would be best.
Great. And Eric, I would be happy to work with you sort of as a volunteer, just to sort of coordinate some of that and continue to push things forward and get more information. Because I know everyone has so much spare time right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Eric's great to work with, though, and if we could assemble a few subcommittees, et cetera, along the way, if we have specific things that take more time, that'd be helpful.
Fantastic.
Any other thoughts on this matter that we've neglected to mention today?
I'm sending chocolate to this whole committee before the next meeting to make sure that
Wow.
everyone has more energy.
Wow.
It can't just be me.
That would be helpful. We accept things like that, so I appreciate that. No matter what county council's office says, we do accept chocolate.
Somebody brought food to our last meeting.
Ah,
I think Pat
that's right.
Was at your office?
I think Eric may have done that. Or was that Black?
That was the in-person meeting, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Those were the good old days.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's consider the date of the next meeting and a meeting schedule. Is this time work for people?
Yeah.
Would you prefer an evening meeting? What would you like? What would be your preference?
This is fine for me. Anybody else?
This is fine for the sheriff's office. Anytime,
Okay.
actually.
Late afternoon is good. Yes.
Yeah, this is fine for me.
Okay. Well, Eric, can you put together a meeting schedule for us?
Yes, sir. Is there a specific request for a how often for the meetings or when the next meeting would like to occur?
I'd like to really try to develop a sense of momentum around this process so that we're not strung so far between meetings, so we have a sense of urgency in getting our tasks done.
Okay. I can look to schedule something for November if that's appropriate.
Okay, November is a tough month, but
That'd be great.
I concur. We need to meet a little bit more regularly.
good. Dale, did you have anything to contribute? I didn't know if you were on or not, so.
I apologize. The sheriff walked into my office and threw a bunch of papers on my desk, and we talked about that for a little bit. But
okay.
I just want to reiterate that I'm glad that we're moving forward with this group. I'm glad that we're finally sharing as a group and moving forward. We look forward to this. The sheriff's first priority will always be the employees that work for the sheriff's office. Stephanie a little bit earlier.
Yep.
She's a wonderful employee, and she's stepped up to the plate, and she's the acting director at Animal Services right now. We are in the process of hiring a director of Animal Services, and we look to have that person on board in early November. She comes from an agency down in Pasadena, and so hopefully at the next meeting, she might be able to join us.
Okay, good. That's good news. Okay, then anything for the good of the order that we've neglected to mention? Bob, are you okay with this? Bob, are you still with us?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sound good?
Yeah, November, I think monthly meetings is imperative if we're going to really move forward with this.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, anything else then? Eric?
Thank you for chairing, Gary.
All right, absolutely. If not, then we will adjourn and take this back up in November. And do some work in the interim to make sure we maintain some progress here. Thank you all for your time. Good to see you all. Thanks for the conversation and contributions.
Thank you for sharing, Gary.
Have a good day,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good to see
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks.